All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a topic that I know a lot of you are already fascinated by: humanity's deep, historical obsession with extreme physical power. I mean, since the literal dawn of recorded history, we've been absolutely captivated by the idea of maximum human performance. And today, we're going to dig into exactly how we've tracked and measured that over the centuries.
It's the ultimate question, right? Who was the strongest person to ever live? It's probably sparked a million gym debates. But here's the thing. For most of human history, we didn't exactly have calibrated barbells or instant replay. Exaggerated campfire tales and whispered legends were literally our only way to track super strength. It kind of makes you wonder, how much of what we think we know about historical strength is actual fact, and how much is just, well, really good storytelling?
So, to really get to the bottom of that, we're looking at a fantastic piece of source material today. It's a highly insightful academic review by Ali Almuzyen, submitted to the Institute of Sports Humanities, and it evaluates David Willoughby's foundational 1970 book, The Superathletes. Willoughby's work is legendary in this space because it actually attempted to scientifically document and evaluate the greatest feats of strength performed right up until 1970.
Okay, let's lay out the game plan. We are going on a chronological journey here. We'll start way back with the heroic legends of ancient Greece, power through the brutal conditions of medieval Europe, hit the Industrial Revolution, explore the absolute golden age of strongmen in the late 19th century, and finally arrive at the highly regulated, politically charged sports of the 1950s.
Starting us off, Part 1, Myths of Ancient Strength.
So in ancient societies, physical power wasn't just about entertainment or moving heavy stuff around. It was deeply, deeply linked to heroism, courage, and national pride. Take ancient Greece, for example. You had these legendary figures like Milo of Croton and, of course, Polydamas. The ancient texts actually claim that Polydamas was so insanely strong, he fought and killed 3 of King Darius's elite Persian guards, the guys literally known as the Immortals, at the exact same time in single combat. Now sure, this is almost certainly shaped by some heavy narrative exaggeration, but it perfectly shows us how strength was just a totally vital part of their cultural identity.
Fast forward a bit to medieval Europe, and the legends definitely take on a different flavor. Up in Northern Europe, you had this brutal environment, grueling manual labor, and protein-heavy diets that basically bred these incredibly tough Viking warriors. The legends of the time actually portrayed some of these guys, and even European nobility, as being so overwhelmingly dominant in battle that they could split a fully armored opponent with just a single strike. Again, it stretches believability, but it brilliantly reflects the immense symbolic value they placed on physical dominance during an era of pretty much constant warfare.
Which brings us to Part 2, Reality Checking the Legends.
So, here is the big turning point. Were any of these insane feats actually real? Well, as we hit the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, physically moving and lifting heavy objects became the new, tangible measure of human strength. And this is where David Willoughby, the author of our sourcebook, just totally shines. Instead of taking these wild old legends at face value, Willoughby applied a methodical, analytical approach. He looked at body weight, leverage, and mechanical advantage to critically fact-check these claims. He wanted to place them within realistic physical limits instead of just romanticizing them.
Now what's really interesting is how Willoughby's reality check actually plays out in practice. Take the famous Scottish giant, Angus MacAskill. The myth? It says he lifted a massive iron ship's anchor weighing somewhere between 1,500 and 2,700 pounds. Willoughby basically ran the numbers, looked at the biomechanics, and politely corrected the record. MacAskill likely lifted an anchor weighing closer to 600 pounds. So yeah, it's a bit of a reality check. But honestly, lifting a 600-pound anchor is still an absolutely mind-blowing showcase of genuine, raw power.
As we move through the 18th century, we actually start to see real verified events pop up. A phenomenal example here is Thomas Topham. He pulled off feats like pulling against 2 horses moving in opposite directions, and famously, he bent an iron poker that was 3 inches in circumference. But what makes this so different from those old Viking tales is that Topham's feats were heavily documented. They were backed by highly credible witnesses like Dr. John Theophilus Delsguliers. We are finally stepping out of pure myth and into verified fact.
Moving right along to Part 3, The Spectacle of Power.
By the late 19th century, so the 1880s and 1890s, verified power had evolved into this massive form of public entertainment. This was really a theatrical peak for physical culture, where strength was somehow both elite athletics and pure performance art. During this era, you have these absolute giants of the stage like Apollon and Louis Cyr. They basically became living, breathing, mythic figures, putting on public exhibitions that just captivated massive audiences. Because what people loved wasn't just the sheer weight on the bar. It was the drama. It was the spectacle of the whole shebang. The strongman was doing double duty. He was an elite athlete, but he was also a master entertainer.
Up next, Part 4, the standardization of sport.
But, spectacle alone eventually wasn't enough. As the broader forces of industrial modernization really took hold, those isolated stage shows turned into structured, measurable sports. Suddenly, you've got codified rules for the squat, the deadlift, and the press. The equipment gets standardized. We're talking right down to the exact diameter of the barbell and the size of the weight plates. There were now strict, objective criteria for what even counted as a completed lift. This is a total game changer, because for the very first time in human history, records could be reliably compared across different athletes and even across entirely different generations.
And this standardization totally paved the way for the modern era, which is perfectly embodied by Paul Anderson in the 1950s. Now, keep in mind, this was the absolute height of the Cold War rivalry between the US and the Soviet Union. Because strength sports were now standardized and internationally recognized, these achievements suddenly carried immense political weight. Hoisting the heaviest barbell wasn't just about personal glory anymore, it was literally a symbol of absolute national power.
And unlike the strongmen of the past whose reputations relied on, a little bit of exaggeration, Paul Anderson's multiple world records were tested under incredibly strict official competition standards. His career represents that ultimate, finalized shift. We had completely, 100% moved away from those ancient campfire tales we started with and fully arrived at verified, unassailable athletic performance.
Finally, Part 5, Beyond the Book's Limits.
Now, while David Willoughby's book masterfully chronicles this journey, our source review points out that his 1970 perspective definitely has some clear limitations when we look at it through a modern lens. I mean, just think about the scientific and medical advancements we've made since then. We have incredible leaps in biomechanics, highly targeted sports nutrition, advanced recovery science, and hyper-complex periodization training theories. And, of course, we absolutely have to acknowledge the controversial but undeniable impact of performance-enhancing substances on modern records. Because of all these rapid advancements, Willoughby's 1970 estimates of maximum human capability actually seem pretty conservative by today's explosive standards.
Plus, the review highlights a pretty significant geographic blind spot. Willoughby's narrative is super concentrated on European and North American figures. But the admiration for physical power, that is a global phenomenon. By focusing so heavily westward, the book largely misses the rich, independent physical cultures that thrived for centuries across Asia, Persia, India, and the Middle East. I mean, traditions like heavy stone lifting and ritualized wrestling were deeply ingrained in those cultures long before Western sports regulation even existed.
And this brilliantly illustrates the incredible journey we've just taken. From Polydamas fighting legendary battles in ancient Greece, to Louis Cyr entertaining the masses with theatrical spectacle, all the way to Paul Anderson dominating regulated international sport. We see the exact same underlying human desire to push physical limits, it's just expressed and measured in entirely different ways depending on the area you're looking at.
I want to leave you guys with this exceptionally powerful quote from the academic review we've been exploring today. Progress in strength has depended not only on muscular development, but also on imagination, determination, and the willingness to challenge perceived boundaries. I love that. It perfectly captures the enduring lesson here, humanity's continuous, burning curiosity about its own potential. So, I'll turn it right over to you. Whether it's in the gym, in your career, or just in your own personal growth, what are your perceived boundaries, and how are you going to challenge them today? Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep pushing your limits, and I'll catch you guys next time.